Let me tell you a tale of a sleeping beast that rises this time almost every year. The lumbering monster known as SKT. A behemoth that withstood countless battles year in and year out. Champions told tale of the Korean Colossus terror over Summoner's Rift, where each passing minute rung the proverb, SKT has a lead. I guess my world's is done. But one year when the night was darkest, a hero brought down the beast. The monster was dead and the people were merry. Alas, in 2019, the SKT monster has risen again. Hey, Dash. And this terror does not wait for your cries. It pounces at any given moment. This is no slow-moving malformation, but a cunning predator where no lane, no jungle, and no tower is safe. So, my friends, splice fear, for the new SKT monster has arisen.
Is this normal? Welcome to Worlds 2019. You're getting a look at the sights and sounds from Palazzo Vistalegre, Madrid, host of the Worlds quarterfinals. We're gearing up for day 2 of knockouts, which boasts 2 best-of-5s worth of action. It's all LEC versus LCK today as Splice goes up against the Titans SKT, followed by G2 versus Damwon Gaming. We kicked things off yesterday, though, with some bloody bouts that had the reigning champions knocking out LCK's Griffin.
And this was a series, honestly, that would only make sense in hindsight. Griffin coming up against IG. It's the world champions who had struggled a bit in summer. It was Griffin who, honestly, those best-of-5s have been such a struggle for them. So we kind of had to see it to believe it. But the end result, in the end, makes sense in hindsight.
And it's not about like choking or anything. I actually feel like Griffin just came in not very well prepared in terms of drafting. They couldn't snowball early game as we kind of expected, and yet they kept getting a weaker late game draft, at least in 3 out of 4 games. And funny enough, they lost all 3 games when they actually got too late. And someone like Jackie Love eventually could carry. Eventually.
That's the thing. I'm getting excited about Invictus Gaming because they're also outplaying Griffin in this series. And yes, Jackie Love's got a couple of very deep Kog'Maw flanks. Yet, they still have people like the Shy that can carry them. And I think that this Invictus Gaming can get back to finals.
Credit where credit is due. Kobe was one of the only who called the IG victory over Griffin just yesterday. We have a whole bunch of series that are hard to call, though, I think, in this quarterfinal, in particular, the second one that we have today. But in reference to yesterday's series, we're looking at FunPlus versus Fnatic. Deficio, there were 3 LEC teams that made it into the quarterfinals. By all accounts, that's got to make you feel good. But with 1 knocked out and only 2 remaining, how are you feeling now?
It's kind of weird because I'm sad, like super sad that Fnatic lost, but I'm also really happy that FPX actually played very smart. They played very well. I think we saw multiple different styles from them. It wasn't just the same, you know, roaming mid laner into diving bot lane all over again. This is actually Fnatic diving onto FPX, who were playing a more defensive early game in this one, and they still managed to outplay them.
Yeah, this is what people really needed to see, I think, from FPX to regain confidence. Because coming out of the LPL with one of the most dominant seasons ever, we expected very, very high heights from them, and yet we did not see that so far at Worlds. So this series was very necessary for people to get faith in FPX again.
It's one of those things where the prediction game for quarters was so hard because you had incomplete information. Domestic FPX, and sometimes those teams haven't translated when it comes to international events. We had the most recent games where Griffin, for example, looked dominant, and Fnatic were back in form. So we came together, we finally saw those 2 teams mesh, and there really was a gap between the two. I think FBX looked outstanding, by far their best performance of World.
Deficio, I'm going to use you as an analogy for all of EU fandom in this World Championship. We whipped up some new technology here just overnight. We have what is now being called the Deficio Happy Meter. It is being displayed currently behind the two of these guys on the side.
Yeah.
Deficio, things aren't looking too good there. A little bit less than half.
No,
more towards the Sadamumu.
I was pretty far up to the happy side when I saw 3 teams make it into quarters. Obviously, we love some first seeds, but second seeds, fine. After yesterday, I've now moved down further towards like a 4 out of 10 probably, you know,
Right.
down towards the Crying and Mumu. However, there's still Splice and G2. So it can still be saved.
Right, we
we're
have
not
room to
down.
grow.
We're
I
not
feel
down
like
there
we're
yet.
on the scale as well.
I'm not gonna cry yet.
Where
I actually
would you
don't
place
like my
yourselves?
spot. Why'd they put me by a Mumu? I mean,
Yeah, 'cause you're sad.
North America is out, but you know,
Yeah.
I've been practicing some mindfulness. Wait, let me
Wrong
go.
way.
Let's go over there.
There it is.
Yeah.
All right.
We
had some good
can
games
control
yesterday.
this, Papa.
All right.
Why are you happy? Griffin lost. Why are you happy?
Happiness is
We got 2 more,
manufactured.
baby. We're fine.
They're happy because the games have turned up so far, and we're
Yeah.
waiting for
We're
another couple
unbiased
good ones
analysts.
today.
Right, unbiased. Yes,
Exactly
definitely.
right. Well, we
Don't look at the
saw
pin. Don't
some
look at the
different
pin.
champions shine yesterday, and specifically, I want to highlight the Shy's Kale.
This was a needed game because I think Kale was a champion that a lot of people had been unknown on, and to see this flash in AoE damage on ult, Kale, this carry performance, it was a real nice counterpoint to some of the more utility and struggling Kale.
And the meme of enemy Kale versus my Kale rings so true with the Shy. Because throughout Worlds, we have seen so many failures with this champion. People playing defensively, people not getting their ultimates off, dying over and over. And yet the Shy is flashing forward, playing it as a true carry, playing it offensively, and even with the big ultimate, trying to get more people in the damage radius.
A couple of dominant performances out of him just yesterday. But if we jump to the other side of the map, where the tournament has been largely dominated, at least in the marksman category, by either Xayah or Kai'Sa, we got a new look yesterday.
We did, because in the FX versus Fnatic series, we obviously had Xayah banned away in most of the games, and then Reckless would take the Kai'Sa, even though he hadn't played it so far in the tournament. And we needed an answer from FPX, and it wasn't a mage. It was actually Varus and Tahm Kench coming in, and I'm very happy to see this. It's a great bottom lane for them. It allows you to win lane against the Kai'Sa as well, and then later in the game you can use Tahm Kench so effectively, both offensively and defensively. So I really like that we got to see a different marksman who could actually beat either Kai'Sa or Xayah.
And this is what we keep our eyes on in these best of 5s. As we're into these multi-game series, it's all about the extra cards that you bring to the pick and ban phase. If you're throwing out the Varus Tahm Kench and you're changing up the bottom lane meta like this, it gives you so much of an advantage.
And I think it's really a duo pick because Tahm Kench nerfs, I think a lot of people thought done for Worlds. We saw it in the Sona Tahm, a little bit surprised. But it's another duo here where the Chinese teams have always used Varus Tahm and Tahm Kench in general, different to the Korean teams. Not a defensive pick purely about disengage from a skill shot, but about turret diving. And if you play through Varus Tahm, you'll find similar results to FBX.
And it's an age-old conversation that we seem to have at these international competitions. When you jump from groups to the knockout stages, who will be those teams to bring out maybe those couple wild cards, and which are going to be the ones to stick to what they know, rely on consistency.
Rengar top lane.
Yes, like Rengar top lane.
No, kill that one.
First
Kill that
blood.
one. Kill that one.
Come on, there was definitely a
Yeah,
path
he
to
got first
victory
blood.
there.
I'm with Dash here.
Okay, well, to get more insight on the quarterfinals, Jat has prepared some brand new questions for Jat Stats.
Oh,
this
this again.
time with a special guest.
Hey, thanks, Dash. We are here. This is the most people we've had
right
for a
here.
Jet Stats segment because we are in Europe. Quick stats is also a thing.
It is, and
It's
your
not a
analysts
thing.
never get the answers. I'm here to help you, Deficio, because you and the rest of the
Him
analysts never
specifically.
answer Jet's question.
Yeah. So the first question, you guys can discuss this, come up with a guess. Guess this team. The team has the highest team CSD at 15 at plus 37.9, but only the 5th best gold at 15. And you were wondering what this is. It's group stage onwards is the sample size.
IG? So
really
IG,
good lane
I feel like
plays.
IG because of the Shy. He
Well,
he
yeah,
averages
yeah,
like
exactly.
25.
Okay, so I can tell you you're wrong already, but I know how to narrow this down to 2 teams. Okay, so
Okay.
the answer lies in one of these 2 teams. These 2 teams both have the same first blood, first dragon, and first tower percentage. They share those things, so it's one of those 2 teams.
Very
Does
helpful.
anyone,
narrow it down at
anyone feel
all.
closer to the answer?
I'm
How
confused.
can you not? I thought
Is
you
this
guys studied
SKT?
stats.
SKT have great
Griffin?
CS stats.
What
at
I
least.
love about this, by the way, he's got one
give
of
him
the
time.
team.
Give him time. They have 20 seconds to come up with an
One
answer.
of the two. So
What are
I
we
mean,
feeling?
On a clock. You like
SKT for sure
We were
is
already
one
told
of
IG is not correct.
Yes.
I think that is a trick question because Jat stats are usually trick questions. I'm actually going to go with Splice.
Interesting.
Because Splice had very good CS, and yet
All right, Kobe says Splice. Papa Smith
I'm
and
going to go
Deficio. Dash, where are you
SKT.
going?
I'm sticking with Deficio
I
here.
said Griffin.
I have SKT.
It's G2. Come on.
Ah!
Deficio, where's your happiness
but
meter? They
against
have
how?
the best
Against
team
Griffin?
CSD.
It's not
I
that
thought
deep of a trick
yeah,
question.
felt so far
They
down.
have a good CSD, but something goes wrong,
Yeah,
like losing
okay,
to Griffin.
okay.
Okay, next
Fair
Well,
question.
you said one of the two.
This top laner has the highest control wards a game at 11 purchased.
For top, that's huge.
I would say
For top
Visichachi.
Who's a supportive top lane?
Do you have a
Visichachi.
hint? Quick shot.
Well, who
I
gets
do have
ganked
a
a lot?
hint.
Who
Because
dies
you're-
a lot and
I was
buys
going to
a
say,
control
who
ward?
dies a lot or
Yes.
gets ganked a lot because you're losing your control?
Yes.
Well,
Sword
actually,
have to
Dash,
replace
Dash,
them.
you've hit
Is
on
it
there
sword?
because this person also has a 75% win rate when conceding first blood.
What?
Nuggery!
Okay,
Nuggery?
final hint.
He was
final
confident.
hint.
Final
This
hint?
player is playing today, and he's playing against the player with the second most control wards.
Nuggery.
Are you sure it's not
something else.
Visichachi? I'm saying Visichachi.
Visichachi here.
Answer really
Nuggery
quick, Kobe
here.
and Papa.
Well, we can't just hit all
Khan,
4 teams.
whatever. Khan,
I'm going
we'll
with
go
Nuggery. I
Khan.
like that call.
Can.
We didn't even need to give hints. Deficio had it right away. It was Visichachi.
There you go.
At 11.0.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Knows his European
Almost
teams
got the first
half
I
the
was
time.
told you were the worst at this game.
Final
Apparently not.
question.
To be fair, I have him helping me.
Lowest kill participation of anyone still at Worlds, 44.1%. This player is still at Worlds. They will be playing today. Who's the player?
And of course, this player plays on a team who's combined Ocean and Infernal Drakes as the cube root of the number of Cloud Drakes they have taken if you round up.
The number of Cloud Drakes they've taken rounded up. Cube.
I'm guessing
You're the
it's a-
mathematician here, aren't you?
You're an engineer.
I'm guessing
Go,
a top
Kobe.
laner.
Hold on. Yeah.
I'm saying it's a top laner.
He said, yeah.
Really low.
Yep, math numbers.
Really low capacity.
Yeah, that's why I think it's a top laner.
Less than half the
It might be Khan as well.
You guys are going to guess. Come on, find an answer.
I'm just going to say Khan again.
I am so lost.
I'm saying Wonder.
I'm still struggling with Quickshot's hint. That's the only thing I'm trying to figure out right now.
Why
is
are
the
you
hint
listening
itself.
to Quickshot? I think that's your biggest problem.
yeah, that hint was.
That's not very
Yeah.
nice.
Excuse me, my math checks out, right?
Yeah,
I
so
actually,
you have
I have
Khan, Wonder.
lolesports
I think it's
stats
Wonder also,
verifying the
though.
numbers
Get it?
there.
Wonder?
Yeah.
All right, Deficio's at a higher kill participation than Wonder in his prediction percentage for Jatstats, so it is Wonder.
And I said at the beginning of the
there
segment,
we
I'd be
go.
helping Deficio.
Got two of
My
them.
stats helped a European analyst. Good job,
All right,
Deficio.
thanks for
Thank
playing,
you
guys.
very
Got
Yeah,
you
we,
guys.
we would have been nowhere without you, Quickshot. Thank you very much.
Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Stay here. Stay here.
See you later. Thank you very much. When it comes to those Worlds quarterfinal moments, though, sometimes you want to be the player that puts on the fancy feet or weaves in the perfect sequence of CC. But then there are the pros who face tank and Elise Cocoon just to say, I'm helping. Presented by State Farm. In his game versus Griffin, Ning graciously takes one for the team after Jackie Love makes a narrow escape.
And remember, Griffin can't kill objectives quickly, so it's still 4v5. Griffin is trying for some miracle.
They're looking for a gank rush here. They know
can
they
they
can't
get
touch
Jackie?
down Jackie Love.
They might get Jackie.
He's in the front. The stun only hits one. He flashes back for the safety. This could still be a team for that IG wins, despite the first 2
3v5,
kills.
3v4.
Here comes Rookie. Here comes the wind wall. All on top. And Viper has to flash to get away. Same for Tarzan. They might stay alive, but the Shy is right over the wall and gets the shutdown all the same. As the right move. I actually really like this approach where they try to get a pick rather than slowly rush down the Elder. But Jackie Love having flash up and then Hurricane autos means the Shy and Rookie can fight back on the back end.
That backward sidestep by Jackie Love, so the Cocoon gets graciously tanked by his jungler Ning, is absolutely worth, because the fact that IG end up having their 3 carries up and there's no longer a Garen for the ideal Yuumi delivery system means IG can win in the ensuing chaos.
That is exactly what I say when I get 100% to 0 at the beginning of a team fight. I'm helping. I'm helping.
Yeah, you're helping.
Yeah. Baited, engaged. I engaged, and I started the team fight. Jackie Love, Ning, 2 of the players that we had questions about for IG coming in to the knockout stage with some inconsistencies in their performance, but they were able to step up to a degree yesterday and push themselves to the semifinals. Probably looking for more cleanliness, though, if they're to repeat.
Jackie Love
Worlds.
especially keeps the inconsistency for now.
It was consistent. Frontline Kog'Maw.
That's fair. That's fair.
You knew what you were getting every single time with him. Well, as we saw earlier, both FPX and IG IG, they advance to the next stage, meaning we are guaranteed at least one LPL team in Paris. Now, the other semifinal is yet to be decided, as we have SKT versus Splice to start the day, and later on, we'll see Damwon versus G2 Esports.
And we're back to this LCK versus EU for today. And it reminds me again of 2015 Worlds, where we had the same sort of storyline here. Two really storied regions, and I think that some people are going to think in two LCK teams. The two EU prediction is the one that I'd think is the most bold, but really interesting day of games.
Well, I think you talk about the fact that we had 3 from each region in the knockout stage to begin with. I also want to talk historically about the LCK versus the LEC, or Europe in general. Remember, not so long ago, a behemoth like SKT being pushed to 5 games against a team like Misfits.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Europe always have been able to offer something new and unique in these series that could surprise an LCK team. However, he mentioned 2015, it was Origin, it was Fnatic, and it was basically 2-3-0s, and it was only game 1 that actually ended up being close. So I don't hope it's the same today. I don't think it is. I think the game has changed too much, and I think EU has gotten a lot stronger as well.
That's what I like about the Misfits example, because it's changed the way some people think about these lopsided predictions going into it. Yes, it would be an SKT victory probably, but there's that excitement there. Can something be pulled out of a hat?
That will be our first series of the day, Splice versus SKT, so we'll get into that in just a moment. First, I want to talk about our second one. The new wave from Korea came to Worlds in the form of Griffin and Damwon. Now, the second seed might have failed, but the young guns of Damwon can still rise as the next powerhouse from the LCK.
And honestly, their last day of groups looked so impressive for Damwon. They cleaned it up in a way that I didn't predict. I thought this team would fall by the wayside of TL and the other teams in the group there, but instead, they held strong, they've continued to evolve, and the first play-ins team from Korea to ever exist is now making an impressive run and only growing stronger.
Exactly. The growth of this team over the course of the tournament is one of the most heartening things, right? This is a challenger team that has made it all the way to quarterfinals now at Worlds and doesn't look like they're going to stop there. They've grown in confidence. Plus, there are a bunch of talented individuals, right? We specifically pointed out like Showmaker for climbing up not only solo queue, but also determining their spot here at Worlds.
Also being one of the names where, if you are talking about best mid laner in Korea, also one of the best mid laners then in the world, him, Faker, Chowi, there's some insane names, Chowi, sorry, that are actually fighting, wrong name right there, Chowi instead. Some absolutely insane names you're looking at, and we actually have people like you, Papa Smith, putting Showmaker at the top coming into this.
It's one of those things that would surprise people, right? Because I think Chovy might be the best laner, Faker definitely out of lane, but the overall package, I think that was Showmaker in summer. But you come into Worlds, you don't play well, and then people like Papa Smithy, what are you saying? What about all these other players?
We say that anyway.
That's true, but for now at least.
That's a nice vote of confidence, though, for Showmaker in the mid lane. But the question remains, will this team perform in a best of 5?
And then see, the player and the team, right, there's a lot of young players here. Nuclear's played internationally before, but there's a lot of variables here. Now, they should be pretty settled in Europe. It's been weeks now that they've been over here. But when I think of Damwon best of 5s, I'm focused on just getting over the line against Kingzone to qualify, and specifically playoffs, SKT, settled team. The experience edge there really edged them out.
And I want to see what happens if they do not find success through solo laners against G2 Esports. When they're against Wonder, against Caps, if Jankers can play to that side as well. Because I don't trust in their bot lane to then be kind of the lane that can carry. I think G2 will have the upper hand there. So I want to see what happens in terms of adaptation if it doesn't work in the first 1 or 2 games.
You already started to go there, but of course, opposite them is G2, who were breezing through groups until those 2 Griffin games.
I mean, G2, we talked about it a lot, right, coming in. There was so much hype around this team. And you mentioned it, Dash, when they go up against G2, or when they go up against Griffin, all eyes are on Jankos, actually. So much of a difference in the jungle because Tarzan wins on both the Lee Sin and the Kiana side of the matchup.
And it's so hard to know, do you bail out now? Because, of course, we have the IG example at MSI, dominance until actually their loss was a relevant one. A lot of people now are really looking at G2 and re-examining their pre-tournament expectations.
And I'm just going to say, calm down, everyone.
Okay.
Because at MSI, G2 also lost a couple of games in group stages. They lost multiple games, actually. And people were saying this is an inconsistent team. They don't know what they're doing. And then they bounced back and beat SKT. I think if you look at individual play and individual members, some of them are more important than others for consistency. This guy is one of them. If he's not actually having a good early game, the laners can't play aggressive. And then G2 can't play the way they actually want to play the game. Because they are looking for constant constant fights, and they need Yankers to be there with them.
And one of the things I really liked about Canyon, their opponent going up here, is how he has worked with what the lanes need depending on their champion select.
You mentioned one, I'll mention another. EX. Let's talk about him and where he slots into a successful G2.
With a lot of teams, we always talk about jungle support together. I think with G2, you can actually separate them because I think Mickey with perks in the bot lane is so important. If he is winning his lane, he's able to set up tower dives. He's able to set up great roams on his own. He's a playmaker, but he's also the kind of guy, just like Hylissang, who will play all the way to the edge and sometimes will actually die because of it.
I think this sometimes has to be kind of ramped up because I think his decision-making this Worlds has let down the team. A lot of flanks have gone awry. The laning phase, he's been fine, but outside of lane, he hasn't been able to make those clutch catches. His K+A is usually super high. He is a real playmaker, but hasn't been like that this Worlds.
Keeping the lens on the bottom lane, though, I think that one of G2's greatest strengths in this matchup is going to be perks. And I think that Mickey can step up right next to him because you're talking about Nuclear and the mistakes that we've seen from him pre-Worlds. I think those are still a possibility in a best-of-5, even though they didn't surface in the group stage.
I want to get the three of you on record for our second series of the day. Down the line, who takes it, Damwon or G2?
I trust in G2's prep. I also trust in their bot lane more than Damwon, so I'm going 3-2 G2.
3-2 here for G2. What about you, Kobe?
Showmaker, Nuggery, and Canyon have all won me over. I am a bit worried about Nuclear, but I'm still going to go with Damwon. I think that they have grown so much at this tournament, and they deserve to move on.
All right, there you have it in 3-1 fashion. Papa Smithy?
I'm buying what you're selling about the top side of the map, but I yesterday gave Griffin the credit for their most recent performance. It didn't work out. I'm pivoting. I'm flip-flopping away. I'm going back to Europe. I think G2 is going to take it.
Well, there you have it. Our first series is SKT versus Splyce, and earlier, Shox caught up with Splyce's jungler.
Thank you very much. I'm joined here by Xerxes before Splyce's epic clash versus SKT. Xerxes, a big match coming up. What can you tell me about your state of mind before this match?
Honestly, I'm feeling pretty confident going into the series, and I know it's SKT, and they have like they are such a big name, and like they have a long history, but I don't care too much about it. I try not to think too much about it, and for me, it's just another series where I'm going to perform my best, and I believe that we're going to take the win.
There we go. Can you tell me how different preparation is when you come into this very hyped, very strong SKT that everyone keeps talking about, as opposed to kind of your regular matches in EU?
Well, we are lucky to have like an insane like coaching staff and lots of people behind the scenes who help us with the preparation. So in that aspect, we are really lucky to have them do like a lot of scouting for us and like let us know what their tendencies are in game. But also as players, like I personally watch the like for example Klid's batting and like see what he does in game. So that's what everyone in the team does pretty much.
Yeah. Good preparation is key. I'm really excited to hear about your confidence because it would be easy to go in and say, hey, we can't win anyway. What motivates that confidence in the fact that you can win today?
Well, obviously, my motivation comes from I just want to win Worlds, obviously, but also having the opportunity to beat SKT and like taking them down this early in the tournament would be so huge. And I just want to do that.
Fantastic. Can you tell me finally about kind of the experience of the meeting of SKT? I knew you made kind of a meme of shaking Faker's hand, but now you get to play him. It must all be a wonderful experience so far for you and for Splyce.
Yeah, honestly, like it's just such an amazing experience. Like this whole Worlds have been like a great experience for me, and I feel like I've grown a lot as a jungler because like there are obviously lots of good junglers at this tournament, and I had a lot to learn from them, and I'm just grateful for this opportunity.
Fantastic. Well, we're grateful for Splyce in the quarterfinals. Thank you, Xerxes. Good luck versus SKT. He's confident. I like it.
Thank you very much, Shox. You can see the giddiness at the idea of taking down SKT. And that's something I want to recognize is that while we are building this up very much as David and Goliath, would be the biggest upset of quarterfinals, that for Splyce, they still need to attack this like they would with the expectation that they can win.
Yeah, 100%. And Splyce also have many coaches behind the scene, not just one or two. Like I believe they're actually up to 7 at this point who are helping. Like no joke, who's
How
actually
many coaches
helping.
Is too many.
I think quality
about
7.
Let's see if they win. Let's see if they actually win here, because I think they have a lot of people working on individual things, and when they are scouting an opponent, they have a lot of footage now they can look at with SKT. So as they also highlight, he's looking at the enemy jungler's pathing. maybe something he can use in the first few games.
I mean, Splice are up against the 3-time world champions SKT, and they're looking to reclaim their former glory. They got something to prove too.
And even from summer season, but definitely from previous iterations of SKT, they're just getting more aggressive. They're getting more decisive, and no longer can you lump them into the reactive, they'll grind out victories and make one great teamfight decision, catch them all with a shockwave and get it done. No, they are much more aggressive, and playing through their jungle is usually where they find their biggest inroads. Clid has been, just like at MSI, on another level.
Yeah, and I think this new, more aggressive SK Telecom look was born of necessity, right? People were already trying to chalk up last year's LCK downfall as a fluke or as a one-time thing, you know, that didn't mean anything. I think it was a very real failure of SKT, of the representatives that actually went to Worlds as well with that slower style, and it required a paradigm shift for the entire region, which is embodied by SKT. You know, with Clid, they're so much more aggressive, looking for these plays, looking for these dives, and we've seen it sometimes come at a cost. You know, they lost to Fnatic with the overdiving and getting punished, but that is necessary for the success that they have seen on the other side.
And it also just feels wrong to not have SKT in these tournaments, you know, fighting for the title last year when we had KT failing and Afrika losing to C9.
Don't remind me.
It felt really wrong, you know, we need SKT here, we need SKT who can play this style, especially someone like Faker. You know, the mechanics are still there. He can go for the aggressive play, sometimes too aggressive when he dies into a Veigar, but stuff like this is important for a player who's now played as one of the best in the world, if not the best, since 2013.
The story of SKT is so insane. They've still literally never lost a tournament to anyone other than the tournament winners or won it themselves in their history in 6 years. And that's why you look at the matchup today and David versus Goliath. This is the sort of myth we're talking about. It's not just some sort of overreaction. Yeah. It's reality.
And that's got to feel good. Faker's been there the whole time for it. Clid, one of the newer additions to the team. But when you see Clid and Faker playing the way they are currently, it makes it all that much more terrifying if you're Splice, because it feels like your entire game plan does hinge around your own mid and jungle.
Which is not necessarily then a bad thing that you have more aggressive players on SKT, because you can punish that. I think Xerxes is one of the best early game junglers we have in Europe, and he's super, super smart when it comes to pathing for himself, but also tracking what the enemy jungler is doing. That's why he highlighted it in his interview as well. So I can definitely see openings for him to try and catch SKT off guard early, because he's very important for this team. They do not kill anyone in the lane without him there.
But I really hope their setup isn't all just to kind of amplify their get Kobe ahead, play through bot lane strategy that we often see. You know, they love the gangplank top lane.
That's why you highlight Humanoid, man.
And that's the thing to me, is that setting up Humanoid over setting up bot lane, which is where they usually go, I think is the way to go, even though Humanoid this tournament hasn't been popping off by any real metric.
He's the kind of player where if you give him a lead, he can actually really run with it, and he can get really far ahead in the individual lane. Like, he's very mechanically skilled, but he also, like, he's inexperienced. It's his first year. He does struggle if he falls behind, because his way to get back in the game is not to play defensive, it's to fight his way back. And often you get punished then against world-class teams.
So then, Kobe, I'm coming to you and I'm asking the big question. How does Splice actually do it?
I love these questions because I love underdogs. And people are approaching this series with some excitement, you know, because of the history of SKT versus Misfits. To me, though, for this team, I don't want them to spread the map. I don't want them to try and do anything crazy. You don't want Humanoid isolated with Faker in a side lane, no matter what look you're seeing in this game. So I think they should be drafting 4 5-on-5, kind of take a note from how Fnatic beat SKT in the group stages. They defend early. They also have a front line for Vizicachi. The Cho'Gath was one of his best games of the entire tournament so far. And you pick some crowd control, some setup for Humanoid and Norscarin to then pick people off later when you group up.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think actually people thinking about the Misfits series with surprise picks, it's the wrong way to think about this Splice team. They are very good with just pure comfort. They've won so many games by getting to late game and then playing around Copper specifically, because he's positioning in team fights, it's excellent. So I actually think if you end up running with, as Kobe's highlighting, you know, a strong front line, good 5-on-5, and let SKT do all the crazy things. Let them try all the squishy comps where you can just one-shot a guy if you catch him out, because then you can actually beat them.
And this is a little bit more the Splice focus, but what about the SKT focus? I still want to answer the question, how does Splice do it? But as the LCK representative, what have you seen in SKT that might be exploited?
I think they've shown so many different looks that it's so hard to pick just one. I think they shouldn't concern themselves on the Splice side, play their own super standard style, and if they can't ground out a victory in game number 1, I'd be surprised.
Slightly less mistakes in the early game.
Faker, wake up. Faker, get on the bus. Faker, show up at the stadium.
That's a pretty good plan.
All right. Well, I'm pretty sure all of those boxes have already been
We haven't seen them yet. We don't know.
That's true. The cameras, you're getting a look inside the arena just now. Again, packed with EU fans, I'm sure, as they were behind the LEC just yesterday. 2 games today, 2 best of